Hi, Michael.
Hi.
So I have a bunch of questions, some of which are mine and some of which are some other folks.
Hmm.
So the first question is about love. What is, or how would you describe God's love or what love is? Has Bhagavan ever commented on what the word love means?
Um, Love is possibly the most difficult thing of all to define. Um, Normally, when people talk about love, they think of love as being between two things. That is generally theologians, for example, that is the dualistic theologians, they always argue love is always for another. That's part of their argument for the distinction between God and soul. But Bhagavan pointed out a very simple and obvious thing that refutes this idea. What we all love most of all is ourself. So obviously we are not other than ourselves. So the, the purest form of love is not love for another, but love for oneself. And our what we actually are alone exists. And all other things that seem to exist are they just seem to exist. They're mere appearances. They don't actually exist. So since we alone are what actually exists, whatever seems to exist is nothing other than ourselves. In a dream, for example, the only one who is existing there is the dreamer. The whole dream world is nothing but the dreamer is seeing itself as the dream world. Likewise, everything that we perceive is nothing other than ourselves. So, so long as we see things as other than ourselves, our love for them is imperfect. When we know ourselves as we actually are, we will know nothing is other than ourselves. So we will love everything as ourselves. So this is why God's love is infinite. Or rather than God, we can simply say Bhagavan. Bhagavan is our own real nature. What we actually are is Bhagavan. So Bhagavan doesn't we we it seems to us Bhagavan is appears outwardly in the form of Guru. So so long as we limit ourselves as this finite form, God or Guru seems to be other than ourselves. Because we are limited and God or Guru is unlimited. But being unlimited, nothing can be other than him. That is what is finite. There cannot be anything other than what is finite, because if anything were other than what is finite, or what is, sorry, there cannot be anything other than what is infinite, because if there were anything other, it wouldn't be infinite, because it would be limited thereby. So in we love Bhagavan as if he were another. So our love for him is imperfect. But he loves us as none other than himself. He doesn't see us as anything other than himself. So his love for us is perfect. So whether you say the love of God or the love of Guru, it all amounts to the same thing. So uh, the love of God or Guru is always far greater than whatever love we have for them. If we want to love them, I say them, but actually, if we want to love it, because it's God and Guru actually only one thing, if we want to love it, we must experience ourselves as that. In other words, if we know what we actually are, we will know nothing is other than ourselves, then our love will be all embracing, because we always have love for ourselves. If nothing is other than ourselves, nothing is outside the orbit of our love.
Would
This
you
doesn't tell you what love is, because love is indefinable, but I think we all know, we all have some idea when we talk about love. The word means something to us. But actually, what love actually is something far greater than our mind can conceive or words can express, because it is what we actually are, which is the one infinite whole.
So when you say that we should, that the one thing we love is ourselves, Can that be interpreted as somewhat selfish or selfless?
Pure self-love is selfless. The distorted self-love that we now experience is selfish because we don't know what we are. We now mistake ourselves to be this person. So our self-love we are now experiencing as love for this person. We care so much about this person, about the well-being of this person. We provide food, clothing, shelter. We take medicines when we get sick, and we take so much care of this person as if it were ourselves. But this is our self-love is being misdirected because this person we now seem to be is not what we actually are. So selfishness arises out of self-ignorance. When we limit ourselves, that is what it's from that limited sense of self that selfishness arises. If we knew ourselves as we actually were, that is selflessness, because then there's nothing other than ourselves. So it's all embracing love.
Okay, thanks. The next question is, how can we learn to turn our attention towards who we really are instead of the outside worldly things? How can we train our mind to do that?
By patient and persistent practice. That is, attending to ourselves is actually the easiest of all things. To attend to anything other than ourselves requires an effort because we are directing our attention, our awareness away from ourselves towards something else, so to speak. Whereas being self-attentive, we are allowing our attention to rest in its source without moving anywhere. But it seems to be an effort because we have so much inclination to attend to other things. Those our inclination to attend to other things are what are called Vishaya vasanas. Through countless lives, we have cultivated very strong Vishaya vasanas. We have very strong inclination to attend to and experience things other than ourselves. Why? Because we are limited of this person, we seem to depend upon other things. We depend, for example, on air to breathe. If you're being suffocated, you'll be so desperately trying to get a gasp for a breath of fresh air. We rely on water, we rely on food, and because these bodies of ours are hairless apes, when we're in non-tropical climate, we depend upon clothing, we depend upon shelter, and so many things that we depend upon for our survival. And because we have desired to survive as this person that we now seem to be, when we get the things that satisfy the needs of this person, our desire is temporarily satisfied, and so we experience a small fraction of the infinite happiness that is our own real nature. When we don't get the things we want or we seem to need, then we are dissatisfied and our mind is agitated and we experience unhappiness. So our happiness and unhappiness seems to depend upon other things other than ourselves. Because of that, that illusion that we get happiness from other things, we have cultivated very strong Vishaya vasanas. We are inclined to experience things other than ourselves because those things seem to contribute to our happiness. So now the problem we're up against is, in order to turn within, that is, so long as we have strong Vishaya vasanas, we are not ready to let go of other things and turn within. So in order to turn within, our love just to know and to be what we actually are must be greater than our liking to attend to other things. So we have cultivated that liking to attend to other things over countless lives. Now we have to to undo that cultivation and cultivate the opposite love, the love just to know and to be what we actually are. The only way to cultivate that is by patient and persistent practice. The more we cling to self-attentiveness, the more the weaker our Vishaya vasanas will become, and the stronger the Sattvasana will become. Sattvasana means that love just to know and to be what we actually are. So that is at every moment in our life, we have a fundamental choice. Either we attend to ourselves or we attend to something other than ourselves. So long as we continue allowing ourselves to be swayed by our Vishaya vasanas, our inclinations to attend to other things, we are thereby nourishing and sustaining them. The more we refrain from being swayed by those vasanas and instead cling firmly to self-attentiveness, the more we are strengthening the Sattvasana and weakening the Vishaya vasanas. And the more we practice this, that is, even a little bit of practice, it creates in us, in our mind, a certain degree of detachment. And the more detached we are from external things, the more peace we will find within ourselves. So by following this path, when you had written this question, you said, how can we trick or lure the mind like offering food to an animal? That is the food that we offer to this this animal ego is the taste of the peace and the contentment that lies in just being self-attentive. The more we do this, the more joy we will find in just detaching ourselves from other things and holding on only to ourselves.
That's a great answer. Thanks. So on to my favorite subject of ajāta.
Yes. Which is not a subject at all.
Yeah, really.
Because there's no one to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about. It just is as it is.
Yes. So Bhagavan has said that, of course,
Yeah.
but what he's written about and talked about and appeared is all within the dream.
Yeah.
So all of his teachings are really geared towards the dream.
Exactly. Look, that is Bhagavan's, arguably his most important work is Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. That is the work where he gives the very fundamental principles of his teachings. There are two Mangalam verses, that is two introductory verses, but the main text begins, verse 1, the first words are, Nam Ullahum Kandalal, because we see the world. That is the problem. That is, according, the ultimate truth is ajāta. There is no world, there is neither subject nor object. There is just that infinite ocean of pure awareness, which is pure love, pure happiness, pure being, etc. So in ajāta, there's no need for any teaching. There's no one to be taught. There's no one to teach. A need for a teaching arises only when there's a problem. In ajāta, there's no problem. So ajāta, Bhagavan said that actually ajāta is not a teaching. Ajāta is our goal, but it is not a teaching because, as I say, there's no one to be taught, there's no one to teach it, and there's no need for any teaching. So a teaching can be useful only if it acknowledges that there's a problem to be solved. If there's no problem to be solved, no need for any teaching. So long as we rise as ego, there seems to be a problem. Because we see the world. That is, who is the we who see the world? It is the ego. It's only when we rise as ego, either in waking or in dream, that we see a world. In sleep, we have no problem. In sleep, we don't need any spiritual teachings, We don't need anything in sleep. We're perfectly contented in sleep. The only problem in sleep is that we come out of it again. Because we come out of it, we see this world and we face so many problems. That is, when we see the world, we see a world only when we see ourselves as a body. So now we're this small little finite person who's here today and gone tomorrow, got a limited in time, limited in space, and limited in so many ways, limited in being separate from all other things. I am this, not this. I'm this body, I'm not this computer in front of me. So we have limited ourselves in so many ways, and with limitations come problems. In the state that is free of problems is the state of Advaita. Advaita means there are not two. If there are no two, there are no problems. As soon as you get two, there are problems, because you get separation and etc. So the Bhagavan's teachings, though Bhagavan's experience is ajāta, as he made clear, his teachings are what are called drishti shrishti vada. Drishti shrishti vada is drishti means seeing, literally, or perceiving. Shrishti means creation. Vada means a contention. So Shrishti Drishti Vada is the contention that perception alone is the cause of creation. That is, in a dream, how is that dream world created? It's created merely by our seeing it. Because where does that dream world appear? Only in our perception. So it's created in our perception by our perception. Likewise, according to Bhagavan, this present state is just a dream. So all that we now experience is created merely by our seeing it. Seeing means, seeing is obviously used as metaphorically to mean perception. Only so long as we are aware of objects do they seem to exist. When we're not aware of objects, they don't exist at all. So why Bhagavan teaches that the alternative to Drishti Shrishti Vada is what is called Shrishti Drishti Vada. That is, first the world is created, and we are born into this world, and now we are seeing it. So the creation is the cause of perception, according to Shrishti Drishti Vada. Almost all religious theories of creation, scientific theories of creation, almost all ideas about how this world originated are some form of Shrishti Drishti Vada. Even in Advaita, there is a form of Shrishti Drishti Vada, but that is not the pure Advaita. That is a diluted form of Advaita. That is Adi Shankara, in order to establish Advaita as the correct interpretation of Vedanta, which is the final conclusion of the Vedas, he had to make it palatable to people. So he, in most of his commentaries, not all his commentaries, most of his commentaries, he takes the perspective of Shrishti Drishti Vada. Of course, in Mandukya Karika, Gaudapada has very clearly taught Drishti Shrishti Vada and ajāta, as Bhagavan did. So when Shankara commented on Mandukya Karika, he argued from the perspective of Drishti Shrishti Vada. But in most of his commentaries, because they were written for people who were not yet ready to accept Advaita in its pure form, he presented this diluted form of Advaita from the perspective of Shrishti Drishti Vada, that is, making a compromise between other philosophies and Advaita. Whereas what Bhagavan taught and what Gaudapada taught is a much purer form of Advaita, much closer to the ultimate truth. Why did Bhagavan teach Drishti Shrishti Vada? Because it is the most practical. That is, the ultimate truth is ajāta. None of this, that is, according to both that according to Advaita, whether Srishti Srishtivada or Drishti Srishtivada, all this is an appearance. That is what is called Vivartavada. That is a contention that none of this is real. It's all a mere appearance. So why does it teach it's a mere appearance? In order to enable us to detach our mind from it. Because the problem is our inclination to attend to these things. Why do we attend to these things? Because they seem to us to be real. In order to detach ourselves from these things, Drishti Srishtivada is, it's, as I say, it's a much purer form of Advaita, and it's that is the Srishti Drishtivada form of Advaita is a very convoluted form of Advaita, because it accepts that there are many souls, that there's a God who created this world by the power of Maya. It becomes extremely unnecessarily complicated. Complication doesn't help us when our aim is to turn within. So Drishti Srishtivada is the most practical teaching for those who really want to detach themselves from the world and to know what is actually real. What is actually real is only ourselves. Nothing else is real. And only when we know ourselves as we actually are, will we experience ajāta. So that is, but Drishti Srishtivada, as taught by Bhagavan, is nothing exists independent of our perception of it. So all things depend for their semi-existence upon the semi-existence of ourself as ego. But even ego is not real. Because if ego were real, it would, that is what it, according to Bhagavan, and according to Advaita, even in Bhagavad Gita it is said this, what Bhagavan often used to say this, whatever exists at one time and not at another time does not actually exist, even when it seems to exist. The reason being that what actually exists is intrinsically existent, so it can never be non-existent. Whereas things that seem to exist at one time and not at another time, they're not intrinsically existent. If they were intrinsically existent, they could never become non-existent. So because they are not intrinsically existent, because they have seem to exist at one time and not at another time, they don't actually exist. Whatever doesn't actually exist, but merely seems to exist, must derive its existence from something else. So all objects, all phenomena, everything that we perceive, derives its existence from ourself as the seer. The seer, the perceiver of all these things, is ego. Even ego is not real because it seems to exist in waking and dream. It disappears in sleep. So ego is not real. So ego derives its semi-existence from what actually exists, which is I am. So if we investigate this ego, because it doesn't actually exist, but merely we seem to be ego so long as we're attending to anything other than ourselves. If we turn our attention back to ourselves, can you find any such thing as ego? Has anyone ever seen an ego? Sometimes when people used to ask Bhagavan, why did this ego rise in the first place? Bhagavan said, okay, first you find that ego, bring it to me, and then we can find out how it came into existence. If we investigate it, we will find there's no such thing. We seem to be ego only so long as we are attending to or aware of anything other than ourselves. If we turn our attention back to ourselves, as he says in Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu, verse 25, Tēdinal otum pidicum. If sought, it takes flight. Because it's an imposter, it doesn't actually exist. If you look for it, it's nowhere to be found. So since ego, if we investigate ego keenly enough, we'll find there's no such thing. And there never was any such thing. Since there never was any ego, there never was any world or anything else. So the logical conclusion of Drishti Srishtivada as taught by Bhagavan is ajāta. That everything depends upon ego for its semi-existence. Ego seems to exist so long as it's attending to other things. If ego investigates itself, it will be found there's no such thing at all. What actually exists is, what is it that is now appearing as ego? It is only pure awareness. When we experience ourselves just as that pure awareness I am, we will know that we never became ego. And since ego never existed, nothing else ever existed, therefore ajāta is the ultimate truth.
So you have said that, and Bhagavan has said that ajāta means nothing ever came into existence or exists or anything like that.
Yeah.
And yet, I am. Does that exist?
I am exists. What does I am mean? I am means I exist. What does the word I refer to? The word I refers to that which is aware. So basically, I am refers to, well, what is denoted by the words I am is our existence and our awareness of our existence. Our existence and our awareness of existence, that alone is what is real. That is what is called Sat-Chit. That never rises or subsides. That always remains as it is. In waking, now we're aware I am. The problem now is we're not aware just I am. Where I am Kevin, or I am Michael, or I am whoever. Likewise in dream, we're aware of ourselves not just as I am, but as I am such and such a person. In sleep, we are also aware of ourselves as I am, but as nothing other than I am. We're aware of ourselves as just I am. So what endures through all the three states is only that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. So that alone is what is real. That never comes into existence. So it is ajāta, it is unborn. It never ceases to exist. It always is as it is.
Has Bhagavan ever described, or I don't even know that it's possible to, what I am is like or not like? It must be nothing at all.
It cannot. It is what is called in Sanskrit nirvisesha. Nirvisesha means visesha means something that has distinguishing features. Visesha means special or distinguished. But I am is just mere awareness. Awareness is something without any distinguishing features. That the objects have distinguishing features. But the awareness in which all objects appear and disappear has no distinguishing features. So it cannot be grasped in words or even in thought. We cannot describe it in words, and we cannot conceive it in the mind. We are always clearly aware I am.
So when Bhagavan said, be as you are,
yes,
that's the simplest thing, because if you begin to read all of this stuff about, Veda Vedanta and all that's all stuff that is within the dream world, which is really unnecessary. So if you can just, I'm thinking,
that is because Advaita has been taught in the form of Shrishti Drishti Vada, it's become extremely complicated. That's all unnecessary. That's why Bhagavan bypassed all that. He went straight to Drishti Shrishti Vada. He simplified and refined Advaita. And whatever Bhagavan taught us, that the core, I'm talking about the core of his teaching, not what he answered to people's questions in talks and other books, because he had to, as he said, the teaching has to be according to the talks, to those who are taught. So often he had to dilute his teaching, but his core teachings expressed in his own writings is extremely simple. It can be summarized in he summarized in just a few verses. In verse 26 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, for example, he said, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ego itself is everything. Therefore, investigating what it is giving up everything. Why is it giving up everything? Because the nature of ego, we seem to be ego only when we're attending to other things. When we investigate ourselves, when we attend to ourselves, ego subsides and dissolves back into its source. And since everything else exists only in the view of ego, when we give up ego, we give up everything. So that's all we need to know. The whole of the whole of Advaita is summarized in that one verse. Particularly if read in the context of the previous verse, in which he pointed out that the ego is just a formless phantom. It's formless because it's got no form of its own. It's a phantom because it's got no substance of its own. But it comes into existence grasping form. It stands grasping form. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes. That means ego is always grasping things other than itself because it is formless. So everything, all forms are things other than itself. Since it is since it is a formless phantom, all forms are things other than itself. So what Bhagavan means there by form is any vishaya, any object, any phenomenon. So long as we're attending to anything other than ourselves, we seem to be ego. But he says in the same verse, Tedina lotam pidikam, if sought it takes flight. That means if the ego investigates itself, it subsides and disappears. Because it seems to exist only so long as it's looking elsewhere. So supposing in a dark forest at night, with a little bit of moonlight coming through the trees, you're walking through that dark forest. Because of the moonlight coming through the trees, you'll see ghost-like forms here and there. Those ghosts seem to exist only so long as you don't look at them carefully. If you look at them carefully, it's just a moonbeam coming through the foliage of the trees. So ego is like that. We seem to be ego only when we're looking at other things. If we look at ego will cease to exist because it doesn't actually exist at all. The snake on the rope, when you mistake a rope to be a snake, so long as you don't look at it carefully, it will continue seeming to be a snake. In order to dispel the illusion that it's a snake, what you have to do, you have to look at it very carefully. If you look at it very carefully, it's just a rope. It never was a snake. Likewise, if we look at ego very carefully, we will see there's no such thing as ego. It was always just pure awareness. And pure awareness is immutable. It's eternal. That pure awareness is that which is shininess as I am. That is eternal, unchanging, and self-shining. So it alone is what is real.
Okay. Thank you. Not to be redundant, but when people have questioned what is meant, well, Bhagavan has said, if something is meant to be, it'll happen. If it's not meant to be, you can't make it happen. All of those kinds of things, the things we deal with in the world,
yes,
everything is the dream, and the dream isn't real. So even the dreamer having the dream within the dream, even the dream doesn't exist.
Yes.
So practically, how does one go about their life? By saying nothing matters.
Exactly. Why Bhagavan, that is, whatever Bhagavan taught us, he taught us for a practical reason. Why he taught that whatever is going to happen, and we cannot change it, because so long as we think we can change things, we'll be inclined to go out and making effort to change things. To the extent that we are firmly convinced that whatever is going to happen, we will be unconcerned about it, because what's the use of bothering about what cannot be changed? So all these are all secondary teachings, but very useful teachings, because they all help us to detach ourselves from this world, to detach ourselves from everything other than ourselves. Detach ourselves from the person that we seem to be.
So ultimately, nothing matters except I am, and I am you can't even describe.
Yes,
so you
yes.
just
nothing matters at all. If you want to say something matters, what matters is holding on to I am, because all problems arise because we let go of, seemingly let go of I am because of our interest in other things. Give up interest in all other things and be interested only in holding on to I am. That's all that matters. That is, so long as this dream continues. When we hold on to I am firmly enough and this ego thereby dissolves back into its source, then nothing matters, because there is nothing other than I am. And there's nothing that could in any way detract from I am.
So if one concludes that if you want peace or happiness, like the Buddhists say, no mind, no problem.
Yes, exactly.
Then you would be drawn with a little bit of common sense, if you can get rid of the habit of the ego, of saying, you know what, I'd rather go into this place which is just peace and happiness, and turn off the world like turning off a television set.
Exactly.
And then you feel better, so why would you go back? And yet
exactly.
I keep turning the TV on like many, but that's just normal.
Because we have strong Vishaya vasanas that we've cultivated over many lives, we can't just switch off the television like that. We can switch off the television at any time, but we're not yet willing to. So we cultivate that willingness to switch it off by trying more and more to turn within. The more we turn within, the more we are detaching ourselves from this, and the less we are concerned about any of these things. The less we are concerned about them, the easier it is to turn within. So this practice is absolutely necessary, but it is a process leading up to the complete dissolution of ego, which is achieved only by turning our attention the full 180 degrees within.
The last question that came up, I thought was really interesting, even though in the strict sense, Bhagavan doesn't even exist. But if you're reading some of his works, if you're trying to understand this, and you ask, help me understand this, please give me clarity on this, in the dream world, has he ever commented, I'll be there to answer, but once you come knocking at the door, I'll open the door and answer?
Bhagavan said the outward guru is necessary because that is the outward form of the guru. There's only one guru. The guru appears in an outward form because our attention is turned outwards. So it's necessary for a guru to appear in an outward form in order to tell us to turn within. But the real guru will tell us, that the real outward guru will tell us, that guru is not the external form. Guru is that which is shining in our heart as I. So Bhagavan said, I am always here because I am as I am. I am nothing other than I am. So that which is shining in the heart of each one of us, that is Bhagavan. So when you say Bhagavan doesn't actually exist, yes, it's true. The outward form doesn't actually exist. But what Bhagavan actually is what we actually are, which is just I am. That alone exists. So long as we have limited ourselves, our only refuge, our only place of safety, our only place of our only refuge is to return within to I am, to hold on to I am.
All right. Well, that's the whole list of questions.
And that is true Guru Bhakti. True Guru Bhakti is not just worshipping the outward form of Guru. Following the teachings of Guru is Guru Bhakti. And what does Guru say? Turn within. I am not this outward form. I am that which is within you as I. So if we truly love Guru, to the extent that we put the Guru's teachings into practice, we are truly expressing our love for Guru. So,
all right.
So that is why practice is all, Bhagavan's teachings are all about practice. Because this is a serious business. Ajāta is the ultimate truth, but now we seem to be in this big mess. Ajāta alone is true, but it doesn't seem true to us. It seems true to us that there's this world, there's this body, and there are all these problems, and we have to get up in the morning every day and face another day, and we never know what problems each day are going to bring. Life is a problem so long as we experience ourselves as limited. So if we take this seriously, if we're serious about being happy, then we have to persevere in this practice, because this is the only way to achieve the infinite and eternal happiness that we actually are. Even now we are that, but we seem to be not experiencing that.
All right. Well, thank you.
Right. Pleasure.
Okay. Well, maybe one day I won't have any more questions and I will have reached ajāta.
Yes. When the questioner disappears, the questions will disappear along with it. How will the questioner disappear? Only by investigating itself. So the questioner should question the questioner. But as Bhagavan said, doubt who is the doubter, doubt the doubter.
Subtle stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I hope it warms up for you.
The real warmth is to be found within, not outside.
Right. I was going to say, it's not even.
That is ultimately nothing matters. As you said, nothing matters. All that matters is turning within. So the warmth of true love is found in having love just to know and to be what we actually are. And we can know and be what we actually are only by holding firmly to I am.
Right.
Being keenly self-attentive.
When you say everything is empty, there's nothing, it's void, you can't describe it, except I am, and that is indescribable and unknowable. It just simply is. And yet it isn't. It isn't, but it is.
Yeah, it's beyond all dualities of is and isn't, existence and non-existence. It is that existence which underlies the duality of existence and non-existence.
It's like describing air.
Yes. It's not like anything, but yes, I know what you mean. It's like describing space.
Yeah.
But it's not even like that. I mean, the closest we can come to saying it, it's like that, but it's actually, it is inconceivable. But it is clearly known. We don't have to conceive it because we are always that.